Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Youthman. Today you can see I'm not in my home theater, but I'm in my friend Bruce's home theater. We're up here in Kansas City and we're gonna be touring 9 home theaters over the next several days. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel because we've got some really great content coming your way. So Bruce, thanks so much for opening up your home and your beautiful home theater to us. Why don't you give us a tour of this incredible home theater?
Hi, my name's Bruce. I live in Kansas City and I'm going to show you my home theater. It's a new house, new construction. We're in here about 2.5 years now. I had the benefit of an architect design the house, and we said we wanted a home theater. So the architect put the home theater in the diagram, looked okay, and I pretty much took the rest of it from there. Obviously the builder put the drywall up, the ceilings, electrician, the lights. I didn't do any of the room itself, but once it was the basic room completed, I selected all the equipment, all the AV equipment. I installed it all myself. So did pretty much everything myself after the builder left with just a basic room. So the house is what's called a reverse 1.5. All the living is on the main floor, and the lower level is semi-basement. It's a walkout. And because it's on a fairly steep hill, we have 12-foot tall foundation in the front, which is 12 inches thick. And we're actually under part of the garage. The garage is suspended. And so I have concrete all around. There's concrete on the floor, 12 inches of concrete in all the walls around the theater, and 7 inches of concrete up top with the garage over us. The dimensions on the theater, it's 21 feet wide. Part of it's 22 deep, part's 24 deep. Kind of average it out and say it's 23 feet deep. The ceiling's 10 feet tall, and there's actually another couple of feet up to the bottom of the garage floor where we put insulation, left room for running wires and so forth. This is my screen, which is made by Seymour AV, which is based out of Ames, Iowa. It's a small company, and when I had questions about the screen, and you could even talk to the company owner. So I kind of like that, instead of dealing with the big major companies that are making their screens overseas. So what I have here is a 16:9 aspect ratio Seymour AV Center Stage XD, which is a acoustically transparent screen because I have the 3 speakers behind there, left, right, and center. The screen is 149 inches diagonal. It's 135 inches wide, which is about 11 feet, and 73 inches tall. The screen, we ordered it, and it comes in pieces, so to speak, but not too many, and it's actually easy to assemble. My wife and I assembled it and hung it in probably an hour or so. It's a lot easier than it looks like. When I first ordered the screen, the 16:9, I didn't think I would need the masking panels because when I watched on my plasma TV, the bars were always black. It turns out, as many people had told me beforehand, with a projector, the bars are gray. I found that distracting, but unfortunately, even though I didn't order the panels when I had the screen made, I did have the magnets pre-mounted, so if I later decided I wanted the panels, it'd be a lot easier to get them installed. So in this case, there's 4 panels, and I'll show you. So the bottom one comes off like that. You can see the back. The magnets are in the frame. And so like there'll be magnets spaced so often on the back side of the frame there. And this is, I did not get the acoustically transparent masking material because my speakers sit above it. But if these would cover your speakers, they have a different material that's acoustically transparent. As you can see during the movie, with one panel off, it's gray, and on the right side it's black, and the black blends in with the walls, the dark walls. So when you have the masks on, you're only seeing the widescreen movie perfectly with no distractions around it, but you can see with the left panel off, the gray bar is quite distracting if you don't have the mask. For speakers, I have a 7.2.4 system, which consists of Triad Silver Series. Behind the screen, I have the Triad InWall LCRs for left, center, right. They're all identical speakers. On the sides, I have the Silver Surround, same thing in the back. On the ceiling, I have, for 4 Atmos speakers, I have the Silver Satellites. My 2 subwoofers are JTR 118 HT. They have 18-inch drivers, 1400 watt amplifiers, and they weigh about 130 pounds each. The cover comes off so you can see the 18-inch as well as the ports on the bottom, held on by magnets. There's one item I have not seen in anybody else's home theater, and I like to think then I came up with the idea, which is, when you're playing the sound very loud, if your burglar alarm, fire alarm went off, you're probably not going to hear it. So I went ahead and installed one of the alarms with a strobe light here in the theater, so I won't hear it, but I'll see the strobe light and know that it's time for action, movie over. Here's the brains of the operation, sitting on a Salamander cabinet, which actually I reused from my previous house where I had the TV, plasma TV sitting on it with bookshelves, but it kind of worked out perfectly in this situation in the back corner here. So for my amplifier, I have a Monolith 11 channel. For the processor, it's a Yamaha CX A5200 11 channel processor. For my 4K Blu-ray, I have a Panasonic 820, and then I also have a Sony Blu-ray to play SACD music audios. Everything's plugged into a Furman Power Center, surge protector and filter. I have this TV back here so I can kind of work on settings in the processor without having to turn on the projector and work off the screen in front. It's easier to work, with the unit here and have the monitor right next to it. For control, I have a Harmony 1, and here's the collection of other remotes, which sometimes I like to use those. And what I did, because the Harmony works on a Bluetooth to IR, is I put an IR receiver up by the screen, and it runs back and shoots the IR onto the components here. So what I have here is my movie collection, which I started 2 decades ago with DVDs. Now I have about 1,200 movies. Over 100 of them are 4K UHD. I do have, as well as current movies, I have a lot of oldies from, say, the 40s and 50s. I have box collections for Sophia Loren, James Dean, Humphrey Bogart, Marilyn Monroe, Audrey Hepburn, that kind of stuff. As far as the genre of the movies, I have everything. And I also have a fairly sized music CD collection. For a projector, I have the Epson 6050, which is an upscale 4K. Not true 4K, but I can't tell the difference between that and a true 4K. It's ultra high definition, and I love the projector. It's impressive. For a mount, I bought an extension, although technically from 9 feet up or 10 feet up, the projector would still work. It'll rotate down, but I decided I wanted the extension for 2 reasons. One, theoretically, I could get a better picture if it's centered on the screen, and the other is it's easier to access for, settings or pulling cables or whatever might need to be done. So it's not too high up to mess with. So for the decoration in here, the walls and the ceiling are dark gray, flat gray, Sherwin-Williams. And Sherwin-Williams has a light or darkness scale. I think it runs 0 to 100, with 0 being the darkest. And this is about a 9 or a 10 for the wall paint. And then we finished it off with a navy blue enamel gloss trim with matching outlet. Levitron makes these colored outlets, so we got blue outlets and switches to match the blue trim. And also you can see the blue trim up on the tray around the soffit. And then we finished that off with this carpeting. The color scheme goes perfectly with the walls and the trim. It's kind of a mix of blues and grays. Sometimes the blues don't photograph well and it looks all gray, but it kind of looks like water, you know, like you're looking at the ocean. So it's kind of a pretty neat carpet. For ventilation, I have 2 supply ducts and 1 return duct. And I also have, for the whole house, a ERV or energy recovery ventilator. And what that does is, in newer homes, which could be very tight, the air gets stale, and some people talk about sick houses. The air makes them sick. So the energy recovery ventilator is pumping in fresh air to the whole house 24 hours a day. So it includes the theater here. So you know, you can have, with the 10 seats, 10 people in a, you know, relatively small room for that many people. But it's nice to have the fresh air constantly circulating all the time. For seating, I originally wanted to get the seats they had at Costco, of which I'm sitting in one right now. But they didn't have the 9 seats I wanted. So I went ahead and bought 9 Palliser Pacifico seats, which are all the other seats besides the one I'm sitting in now. The Costco one, which they cost $500, included the movable headrest and storage compartments and electronic outlets, so it had all the bells and whistles for a very reasonable price. The Palliser Pacificos I got, they have cup holders, they're power reclining, but they don't have the moving headrest. But of course, as long as I have one, that's the most important thing. Anyway, later after I'd bought all the seats, I was in the Costco and somebody had returned 2 of them, one open box, one still closed box. So I figured I'll take the closed box one and, you know, go with 10 seats here, 5 in the front, 5 in the back. And it worked out perfectly. So I have the seat I want for myself. Everybody else can have the Palliser Pacificos, which are good seats, but just don't have all the doodads this one does. One of the things to keep in mind if you have a multi-row theater is leaving enough space between the reclined seats so somebody can walk through if they're going to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of a movie. So here you can see, even fully reclined, I can walk through. So there's about, this platform is about 7 feet deep, which obviously provides plenty of room, but make sure you measure the particular chairs you have.
Well, Bruce, thanks so much for inviting us into your home theater. And thanks for sharing with our audience just kind of your story and your journey over building this incredible home theater. And so one thing that I would love to do is just kind of get some feedback from you and just ask you a couple questions. Some that maybe you guys at home are thinking about as you saw this home theater, and maybe as you're thinking about possibly building something like this, or maybe even something bigger or even smaller in your space. So one thing when you're building a home theater, I know a lot of times there are things that we want to do, and then sometimes there's things that we physically can't do. So was there anything in this build process that maybe changed from what you originally wanted, or maybe some challenges that you ran into along the way, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Well, the house, once we had bought the lot, we'd spent about a year working with an architect, you know, and the builder on planning what we were going to do. And at the same time, I was planning my theater out separately. I mean, but you know, also with a concern about, is there anything special I needed done in the room? I mean, that the builder needed to do, like the platform for the second row. Most of it, otherwise the room is pretty much straightforward construction. You know, if it was a bedroom, it wouldn't be much different. But you know, I kept researching on equipment. You know, there's just so many brands of AV equipment out there. It's just mind-boggling, really. And so, and my goal was value. So I wanted quality components at, you know, minimum cost. You know, didn't want to be swayed by brand names or something like that, you know, when something lesser of a you know, big name thing will do the trick. So, but as far as construction issues, so originally when I was shopping for subwoofers, I was looking at like 15-inch subwoofers like Monoprice or Sue. And I had built a corridor behind the wall where the screen is on, where I thought originally I'd put the subwoofers in there. Now the speakers were in walls, so you didn't need a space back there. But, you know, of course, if you want to put big towers, you could put them back there too. But anyway, but then later I heard about JTRs, and I wound up getting their smallest ones, the baby JTRs 118s. But they're bigger than any other subwoofer out there on the market.
Yeah, when you said baby, I'm thinking, yeah.
So, but it turned out they wouldn't fit in the 30-inch corridor I had behind the screen there. So they're now sitting prominently out front, but I've decided I like that look. I like the look of the big subwoofers out there and showing people, you know, the 18-inch driver, and they weigh 130 pounds each and all that kind of stuff. Now, in hindsight, now that I've seen other people with JTR, the Captivator 4000s, I have a little bit of subwoofer envy. The ones I have now are totally more than adequate. They're great. You know, they're better than virtually any non-JTR subwoofer out in the market. And I try and focus on that than the fact that they're the baby JTRs.
Right.
So, you know, would I maybe one day upgrade to the 4000s? Maybe, we'll see. But it's not, I mean, the ones now are just great. So I'm not concerned about that. Another construction issue that came up, and I realized it kind of at the time and didn't address it with the builder, but the main doors probably should have been pushed back a little bit because the right surround speaker was not placed exactly where ideally it should be. And on top of that, the electrician put the light switches, whether normal height, but I needed them to be higher to account for the ideal positioning for that right side speaker. So I've been kind of bummed about that all along, that's not right. But we had Matt from Storm Audio in here as part of the tour. And I was discussing that with him, and he said, well, actually, it's a good thing because you don't want the side speakers directly opposite each other because they cancel out. So having them offset actually is good. So, okay, so there was one thing I thought was bad.
Maybe it worked out, you know, for the good anyway.
Worked out good. I was trying to figure out where to put a vertical rack for the equipment, and for the longest time. And then for some reason I never thought of it till we were moving, that I had that Salamander cabinet that fits in perfectly, way better than having a vertical rack. I really like it. Turned out good.
It gives you good access behind the equipment too, because most of you guys, a lot of times we don't have the ability to get behind equipment really easily. So it's really nice to be able to just reach behind, make your connections. So that worked out really well.
Another compromise was the cabinet for storing the movies. I would like more cabinet space, but the rear speaker couldn't go any higher. So that's what limited the amount of cabinet space, which is now pretty much filled up with movies.
It's wall to wall.
So I don't know what I'm going to do for future movie storage. On the lighting, I use these Levitron dimmers with adjustable dimmers, and I went with them because of the color. They matched the navy blue of the trim. They look really good. Sometimes I wish I had done the smart switches, but I can always change that easily at any time in the future, so it's no big deal. On the lighting, so we have I have the tray lighting which is kind of just an accent lighting. And if you just want some minimum lighting in here without getting it too bright, where you can watch a movie and have a little bit of light, or if you're watching sports, football game or something like that. Then I have the sconces, which are also kind of more of an accent lighting, but they kind of give it a more movie theater look. And then for, if you got to see what you're doing, I have the 4 overhead LEDs. What I would change is I would do 6, because when they were first installed and it was just white drywall, it was super bright in here with the 4 lights. But once we painted it dark gray, it got a lot dimmer in here with 4 lights. It's adequate. There are times I'd like to make it a little bit brighter, but it's okay.
Works great.
But again, if I did it over again, I'd put 6 in instead of 4. Not a big deal. I think that's it. I don't want to sound a little conceited here, but I think I did a pretty good job.
I think you did a great job.
I did.
We thoroughly enjoyed the demos.
I did all the pre-wiring myself. I installed all the equipment. I picked out all the equipment with a lot of advice from people on the AVS forum. It's a great place to
absolutely
be when you're designing. Yeah, if I didn't have that, this theater would not be half as good as it is. But with the help of all those members, it turned out really good. And I've even had some guys come over to, help me do a little calibrating and so forth after the fact. But I did it all by myself, except, my wife had to help me hang the screen and help me put some of the speakers in the ceiling.
Sure.
Oh, and help me hang the projector, which we almost dropped the first time we put it up.
Oh, no.
It was kind of funny. It took the 2 of us the first time, but after I did it a few times, I can do it by myself now, okay?
Nice.
So I think that's the main point. Oh, I should mention on the budget. So as far as the budget goes, obviously the construction costs were just built into the cost of the house, so I wouldn't be able to tell you what it costs to build the theater room per se. But as far as all the AV equipment goes, I'll see if I can remember roughly the cost. So on the screen, the Seymour screen, that was about $1,900 and another $400 for the masking panels, which, believe me, they're well worth getting the panels. On the projector, the Epson 6050 runs about $4,000. I don't know if that price has come down in the last couple of years. If I was buying today, I'd probably buy the JVC NX5 just because the price has come down quite a bit on that in the last 2.5 years since I bought it. So that might be some change I'd do if I was buying today. But in retrospect, I bought the right one at the time. For the amplifier, I have the Monoprice 11 channel. That sells direct from Monoprice for like $2,600. It's the best bargain out there in amplifiers. Great amp for a reasonable price. For my processor, I have the Yamaha CX-A5200. I think that lists for about $2,800. You can buy it at a discount, and it's an excellent processor, especially for that money. For the Blu-ray, the Panasonic 820, I think those run around $400 these days. For the Triad speakers, the 11 Triad speakers, probably the list price on the 11 of them comes in around $9,000, which is really a bargain for the excellent quality they provide. And the 2 baby JTRs, which are discontinued now, but I think a few years ago when I bought them, they were like $1,600 a piece or something like that. I have 2 power conditioners, one that's up front on the 2 subwoofers, Furman power conditioner in the back. You could figure on spending $500 for a power console or something like that. What else do I have? I think that's all the main
Your
equipment.
seats, remember?
Oh, the seats. So the Palliser Pacificos, I got those on sale at Nebraska Furniture Mart for $500 something.
For each seat?
For each seat. The Costco seats were the best deal, but they don't sell those anymore. Because those were $500 with all the features in them.
Sure.
So.
Nice. I know one of the questions that a lot of guys ask about when they're building a home theater is, you know, how big of a screen should I go with? So how did you kind of determine what size you wanted to go with in your room? And, you know, even the aspect ratio, you got a 16:9 screen that you masks down to like a 2.35. So kind of walk us through maybe those decisions.
And that was probably the hardest decision to make, is how big the screen is. If you go online, there's all kinds of formulas using field of view and this and what the human eye can see. Well, I didn't like any of those.
I didn't either. I did not.
They basically give you too small a screen.
Yeah.
You can do much bigger screens. So what we did was I got the projector first, and I didn't buy the screen. And we just watched.
Put it on the wall.
Put it on the wall. I was surprised. I didn't think we'd be able to see it on this dark gray wall, but it was actually watchable. And actually it kind of made you kind of exciting, like, wow, what's this going to look like on a real screen? Anyway, we spent about 3 months watching on the wall, my wife and I, every night. And then we'd have this discussion like, oh, that's too big, that's too small. And then you'd say, okay, that's a good size. And then you'd watch a different movie and you go, oh, no, that's not the right size for that one. So it was really kind of a little bit crazy having to take 3 months to figure that out. But we finally did, you know, with the goal being get the biggest screen we can without it being too overwhelming.
Sure.
And some stuff in the 16:9, depending on what the material is, you know, borders on a little too much, but 99% of the time the screen size is perfect, both for the 16:9 and for the 235 widescreen. The other, once we decided on the screen size, the other factor came in, since we have 10-foot ceilings in here, was how high to put the screen.
Right.
So from the front row, you don't want it too high. Well, the back row would like it higher, but the front row, you don't want to be lifting your head up too high and where it gets uncomfortable. And the other thing of having it too low is if your feet are propped up, you don't want them blocking the screen. And then, you know, the other consideration, originally I wanted a 14 or 16 inch riser, 2-step, but my builder, for various reasons, didn't want to do it. He built a 7-inch 1-step. I was worried the back row was going to be too low, but by figuring out the proper place, putting the screen base, you know, factoring all those things in, the back row not being too high, not being too low, for the front row, same for the back row. But even though it sounds like there was a lot of compromise to be made, it works. I found the right spot and everybody's happy. You know, it doesn't matter which seat you're in, you can see the screen okay. So it worked out good, but it took a lot of, I don't know if you...
Calculating and even just kind of playing around to see what works best.
I was going to say a lot of work, but it's not really work.
That's right, when you're having fun.
It's fun.
So another good question that I always get is like, how far are you from your screen, from the front, like your main listening position?
11 feet.
About to your eyes?
Yeah.
Okay, so 11 feet, and I believe you said yours is about 149-inch diagonal?
149 diagonal.
Is that in 16:9 or?
In 16:9. Okay. And it's 135 inches wide, which is about 11 feet.
Okay.
So I think the screen size is good. Probably could have done slightly bigger, but it's big enough.
So just perspective, I know people think I'm crazy, but I've got a 150-inch diagonal on a 2.35:1, and I sit 9 feet from it. So that goes, just what you were saying, it goes against every formula, but it works for me. And kind of like you said, it's kind of borderline, like I definitely would not go any bigger, but I absolutely love the immersiveness of it, and I don't feel any eye strain from it whatsoever.
Yeah, and then, you know, a lot of the enthusiasts say, you know, well, you need to go with a widescreen instead of a 16:9. You know, that's for the true
cinema
thing.
Sure.
But, and that's, I agree with that if you don't have ceiling, you know, floor to ceiling space. You know, if you got a 7-foot whatever, yeah. But if you have enough ceiling space, I think you're better off going with the 16:9 because you're maxing that out, and you're still maxing out the widescreen. So there's, if you have unlimited ceiling, or like I do, or almost.
Yeah, you've got plenty of space above that.
I think you're better off going with the 16:9.
Yeah. So in my room, I've got a big cabinet, and so to me, I wanted that 2.35 to 1 because most of the content I watch is 2.35 to 1. So I wasn't concerned about having a massive 16:9 screen.
Well, on that note, the other thing I did was, for my then 1,000 movies, I went back and looked at the aspect ratio. Not on all of them, but
a lot of them.
I took a representative sampling out and found out half of them are widescreen, half of them are 16:9.
Yeah. So again, you've got to figure out what works best for you and your your viewing habits. If you watch a lot of sports, 16:9 is a really great way to go. If you watch a lot of movies and half of them are 16:9, half of them are 2.35 to 1, I think you did a great job because, again, we've got the ability, because of the height of the room here, that you can, you know, go really large, tall, and then we've still got a really massive wide screen for 2.35 to 1 content. So Bruce, man, it has been a pleasure. Thank you again so much for just opening up your beautiful home, open up your incredible home theater. And hopefully, guys, this theater room, this home theater tour provides inspiration, maybe just some ideas for you if you're in the building stage or you're thinking about building something like this in your own space. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to subscribe because we've got weekly videos coming up from this 9-theater home theater tour here in Kansas City. And as always, you guys be blessed, and we'll catch you in the next video.